I want to leave this world having made a lasting impact. If you care about something and you put that enthusiasm and you put that excitement into it, people are addicted to that. People are drawn to that. Whatever the challenge is, whether it's starting a business, whether it's doing 200 miles, 100 miles, a marathon, who knows what, you have to have some why. I think about that all the time. You just have to get in that headspace. You have to be inspired by it. You have to find the why. Do everything with integrity.
I'm very hyped that today I'm going to introduce you to a very unique individual. An individual who has put his blood, sweat, tears, body on the line in more ways than one, whether it was for a philanthropic cause, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for different charitable organizations, or serving Israel as an advocate, as a soldier, as a leader. This is the type of dude that practices what he preaches. And today you're going to meet someone who is an ultramarathoner, an advocate, a philanthropist, and a friend. I am so amped to introduce you to the first guest in the new Inside the Inspired studio. Please welcome my friend, my brother, Eli Wininger. How are you today, sir?
Great. How are you, brother? Well, after this little morning run we got, a little morning workout, sauna, how could I be bad?
You got to do hard things with friends to create that kind of bond. And I just feel like the people that I've surrounded myself with these last few years have really amplified my mission. And I want to start off by sharing with the audience a quick story. Eli was a coach for me for the 58-mile ultramarathon that we raised over $29,000 towards a friendship circle. And to have someone in my corner that believed in me, that helped guide my willingness to do the thing, but also cultivate that ambition, help me silence the doubt, help me take action on the thing I was trying to do, but also someone who does it himself. Multiple 100-mile races under his belt. It meant a lot because I saw it through, and he even called me in the middle of the run. He always checked in. He was helping with the plan. And when in doubt, stick to the plan. Now I can formally thank you in person.
My pleasure.
For helping make sure that that thing got done. So it's a pleasure to have you on the pod, man.
And knowing you is going to get done regardless. 100% is going to get done. You made my job easy.
So you have a background serving in the IDF. We talked a little bit about the philanthropy. We talked a bit about the marathons, ultra marathons. Where does all of this ambition come from?
I think each one is different, but for me, I want to look back on my life and give a big, fuck yeah. That's what I want to do. So whether it's, I want to know that when, for example, with Israel and when October 7th hit, I had multiple options. So when shit hit the fan and my people were attacked, did I, fight? Did I flee or did I freeze? I fought. We'll be talking about this story for years to come and what happened and where you were on October 7th, what you did, this, that. And I knew what I wanted my story to be. And I knew that I wanted to help. And I knew I want to leave this world having made a lasting impact for the good. And that means something different for everyone. I know what it means for me, but I'm also constantly learning what that means for me. And then whenever I feel it in my gut of what that is, I act on it. And also, I don't want to ever live in fear. So anytime some sort of challenge or obstacle comes up that makes me fear it just a little bit and doubt myself, that's the sign for me that I have to do that. So whether it's 250 miles and the longest I'd run before that was 100 and 250 sounded outlandish even 2 years prior.
Because it is.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to do it. Joining the IDF and going into a special forces unit, everyone was like, dude, you're not a fighter. You've never been in a fight. You're not an aggressive guy. You're super friendly and nice and easy. Why are you going to combat? I wanted to help. I wanted to fight for my people. So you can change whoever you are and whatever people think of you, because you are your own author of your life.
Were you always like this?
It's a good question. I think, yes and no. Growing up, I played very competitive soccer. We were the number one team in the country. So I think that embedded something in me. We'd sprint for like an hour straight at our soccer practices. And I think that constant work ethic was ingrained in me at a very young age. And went to competitive high school. So I think all that had a huge impact. But I think personally, anytime I went with kind of the rat race route, it didn't work out as much for me. And anytime, because I looked at society, or my parents were telling me to do this, or everyone around me was doing something and it was kind of expected, it never really worked out for me. And it just didn't feel true to me. And I still fall in that trap every now and then. And anytime I took this huge leap of faith or doubt or whatever you want to call it, and did something unique, but somewhere in my gut felt right and really excited me and scared me at the same time, it always was the best decision of my life. And there's like numerous moments like that I always think about. So yeah, whether I was always like that, I think it developed over time. And the more, as Matthew McConaughey says, the more green lights I got from those instances, the more I started listening to that.
Did you read that book?
I listened to the podcast or the audiobook, which I think is amazing because it's incredible.
So I read it and it reads in his voice, like every single line. And it's a beautiful book if you haven't seen it. It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever actually read. Like crushed aesthetically.
It. Yeah.
And there's another sentiment that he talks about in there called less impressed, more involved. And I feel like a lot of what you're sharing is about not sitting on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were saying, 250 miles was double your PR, your personal best, your personal record.
Yeah, more than double.
More than double. Yeah. 1.5 times, 2.5 times, pardon me. You could sit back and you could look at that goal with this fear, this awe, this I can't, but you got less impressed by it and more involved. You put in the work. And we were chatting while we were running about how you were intending on doing it a year earlier. Yeah. But because of October 7th, you had to delay it so you could go back and fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then because you're not moving around that much, this once upon a time, like I could run a 100-mile race on command, that mindset kind of faded. Let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah. When we were in Gaza, you're staying in buildings all the time. You're not going for a run around Gaza where you could be sniped or hit with a rocket at any moment. You're staying put inside of a building unless you go on a mission and you're out and back and they're all close and very, very close proximity. So you're not moving a lot. So when I came out of Gaza, I went for like a 5-mile run just to clear my head. And like that winded me because it had been months of just not doing anything. And, 5 months prior, I was ready to run a 200-mile race, 250-mile race. So in that sense, it was another level. But when I came back more so mentally, I couldn't get in it. I mean, I had been doing something with this crazy high purpose of protecting my people and saving my people. And I had this it was the most important thing I'd done in my entire life. That's what it was. And still is the most important thing I've done in my life to this day. So to start just running these crazy long distances, I was like, why? Like, what's the point? Like, what's the point? What am I doing this for? So my why, which is the only way you can finish one of these races, just as well. The only way you can do any type of these big feats, physically, business, whatever, is you need that why. And there wasn't a why for me at that point. I'd completely lost it. And it took several months, and I was, I had this race on the calendar for the next year. But another morning gets up, maybe I do a few push-ups, maybe I go for a short run, but like I just mentally, I mean, you call it PTSD, you could call it all sorts of things. I just was taking me a long time to get back into society. I had a big click in my head where there are 240 miles in the run and there's 240 hostages taken. And I was like, wait, something that's so important to me for the last year in general is Israel and the hostages and this whole situation. I can do a mile for every hostage and raise a ton of money because whenever I put myself behind like a big why and a big purpose, it's done. So I was like, wait a minute, that's my it. That I can keep fighting for Israel in a new way, in a way that was also part of me and true to me. And then once once that was the reason, and it was, do I get up or no? Well, I have to do this run for the hostages to raise the money. And I blasted all over social media to get myself the social accountability, because then everyone knows and everyone expects it. So I'm a big fan of that, is just use peer pressure to your advantage and these expectations. So once I did that, it was getting me out of bed, it was getting the routine, and then I started having the why. And then I tuned back into the old me, and it helped a lot with my personal therapy and getting over everything, because I was able to help in a unique way. And it's like a new front line, is that I call it in a lot of my speeches. I wasn't physically on the front line fighting for the Jewish people in war, but I was doing it in another way. Everyone can help in whatever cause, whether it's for Israel, if that's your thing, or whatever your cause is. There are different ways you can help, and you just got to find it and be creative.
I love how you compartmentalized it into different buckets, because you're absolutely right about the new front line. There's this, when it comes to philanthropy in general, let's just touch on it because we both have a background in philanthropy, especially around endurance events, there's this sentiment that there's only one way that you can contribute. And I've come to find that over the years, there's different areas, right? Because you have the social media warriors, right? There's the social media battle that, especially right after October 7th, we were losing. As Jews, we were losing it.
Big time.
And it was very frustrating to see, like, if I post something, like all of these hate comments, like AI bots just rushed it. It didn't even matter how big or small the following was. And there was very minimal support, right? And that's not to call anyone out. That's just they were playing a different game. And so there's the social media war. There's the economic war, right? And then there's that whole element of people that lost their jobs, people that lost their small businesses, and how those were going to be funded. People were displaced, obviously.
So many.
And then there's the actual physical war, right? Being inside of the buildings or inside of Gaza. But all right, so we'll just stick with those three for an example. Like, there's those different buckets that you can put them in. And like you said, people can choose the different kind of impact that they want to make. In my case, in your case, it's been social. Obviously, both of us served. You went back to Gaza to go fight. And
you have to have a family to protect.
And I think that a big part of it is you have to realize that with this impact that you want to make when you're doing any kind of philanthropy is, where is it going to be felt? When I did the Goggins Challenge and added 2 miles in memory of both my grandmothers who had passed away from Alzheimer's, I remember going through different organizations that I wanted to raise money for, and a lot of them were around logistics for people that suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's. And I felt like that was kind of putting a Band-Aid on the issue. It wasn't really solving anything. So the organization I ended up raising, I think it was like over $15,000 for, was Cure Alzheimer's through research. And I felt that through research, there was at least something actionable happening, and that there was a palpable difference that could be made. And I think that is what led to such an amazing contribution, not because of, both my grandmothers, rest in peace. It was because it was an action-driven approach, right? Where where there's a solution that's actually being pointed to, not like, here's a bunch of beds, here's a bunch of Band-Aids that we could all put on the issue. And the other thing that I appreciate and admire about you is again, with the LA fires, right? Like, there's this crazy part of you that just throws yourself into these battles. Why?
For me, I just want to help. Like, I noticed, I actually started in college. I'd started a nonprofit organization that helped children with hearing disabilities in India with a friend of mine. And I saw how much I loved it. And I remember seeing for the first time in my life, and his mom and him just started crying. And that was the moment I realized how much I love helping people and making a real difference. That turned into, where can I help whenever, obviously I joined the military. And then here in the fires, I'm the type of person where it's fight, flight, freeze. I'm just gonna attack. Like, I think it's a little instinct of each person, and for me, I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna attack. So I would have loved to suit up and just hose down these fires with the guy, but that wasn't me. They didn't need me for that. So I was like, how can I help in a different way? And like going back to what I said, everyone can help in their own unique way, whether it's raising money, whether it's physically volunteering. Everyone can help in a different cause in their own way. So I had remembered when I was a soldier, numerous times people brought us goodies, food, equipment, anything, barbecues, all sorts of things that just, the thought was amazing, and the food itself, like we used it. So I just thought, how can I help? I'm going to go and do the same thing for these guys because they're fighters, they're warriors. I'm going to go and support them and give them a few things that they need. So I took $100, went to a local grocery store, bought a bunch of Gatorades and waters and snacks and protein bars and all the stuff that I knew they would need, dropped it off at the local fire station, said thank you, posted it on social media, and added my Venmo link and said, if I get enough money, I'll do it again tomorrow. Woke up with $1,000 in my Venmo the next day, did the same thing, posted it again. Next day, $5,000. And over the course of a week, we donated $100,000 worth of product to fire departments all over. And A, that goes to the credit of social media, that it can be used for good.
100%.
But B, if you really throw yourself, and people had asked me, Eli, how do you just raise that money? Like, I'm like, I think if you just, and I'm still figuring that out, but it's like, if you care about something,
Yeah.
and they know that you're a good person, they trust you, right? You're not some sleazeball. If you care about something and you put that enthusiasm and you put that excitement into it, people are addicted to that. People are drawn to that. And they're going to help. They're going to sign up. They're going to do it. They're going to want to help you. Like, people are always scared of what other people will think. But if you put your love, if you put your all into something, it's one of the most addicting things. All people love seeing that.
I think your story in particular and the draw that you bring and how you inspire people, how you inspire me, I mean, you're about it, and it's very difficult not to, I mean, we were talking before about the impact that we've had on one another, but
Totally.
like
Quick interruption here. I'll get up in the morning and I get up early and I do the whole thing and all that. And everyone thinks it's easy, and it's not easy. And he'll tell you and I'll tell you it's not easy ever. And any influencer who does that will tell you, or, any psycho person will tell you. But I'll get up in the morning about to tell myself an excuse. And I'm like, I know if I open Instagram right now, I'm going to see a story of Jonathan, who has like 2 kids, married, runs a business, runs a podcast, and he's going to have done 7 to 10 miles and 100 pull-ups, push-ups, dips, all these things. And I'm making excuses. I have no kids, no family. Like, there's no way I can allow myself to do that. Like, he is big time. Like, Inside the Inspired is him.
Thank you, man. I'm very humbled by it. It means so much. It's one of those things that, like, where you talk about why, and the why on one side, it only gets you so far. And, I think a good place for us to go next would be to talk about discipline. Because I think a lot of people struggle with discipline. I'm going to share something with you that I was speaking about the other day with high performance psychologist Michael Gervais that kind of blew my mind about discipline, but we'll talk about that in a second. The reasoning and the motivation and the understanding of the why I do these things is in large part because once upon a time I couldn't. And whether it was shoulder surgery or getting bullied at computer camp or acting camp, and them taking my clothes and throwing me in the shower, or taking me out of the shower and throwing me in front of a girl, or in college, like getting picked up and manhandled and moved, or whatever the thing was. Wow. I just got very frustrated, even post-military, right? Like, I just got very frustrated with feeling like life was handling me and I wasn't handling life. And so I wanted to change the narrative, and I felt strength was a great metaphor, mentally and physically, to be able to do things that people wouldn't be able to manhandle me. And even if they could, I'd at least be able to fight back, right? And so I've learned how to get tougher over time through the reps, through the experience. I don't have the same level of anxiety or paranoia about it that I did once upon a time years ago. But even with the strength came this element of I'm still aesthetically not where I want to be. And then when I got to where I wanted to aesthetically, I wasn't that happy. And so I realized I was tethering a lot of my worth and self-worth to my physical appearance. And so I needed to change. Eventually I figured out what that was, but through nutrition, through mindset, but in large part, the way that you inspire me is through your conviction. Like you said, people see you, believe in what you're doing, and care, and see that you do it, and then they get addicted. But I think that seeing someone go all in, even if they don't know your story, there's something so authentic about the sincerity that, recently, I think it was on Twitter, I saw someone who was like, instead of donating money, like you should teach someone business, like you should do a business deal with them. And I was like, that's very practical, but like, not everyone knows how to do business, and not everyone is going to do business well. And there's a lot of shell companies and a lot of misfortune.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's better to just give the fish than to teach how to fish, But that, I digress.
Interesting. Yeah.
But separately, let's kind of shift into the discipline of how you and I are able to do these things, because I think we're both at a place after ultra marathons and ultra endurance and military experience and just putting ourselves in very difficult physical and mental and emotional situations, that there's something valuable that people can extract. So I was speaking to Michael Gervais recently, Dr. Michael Gervais, high performance psychologist. Episodes should be out by the time this episode airs. And he was talking about how discipline is actually thinking small, because it's one of those things where you're looking at a ripple effect of the larger aspect, which is the purpose and the vision. And you were just talking about the purpose and the vision and the why. What is it that gets you? It's not just seeing me or other people that are doing these things and the competitive side of you, right? Like that's like the standard, I feel like. But where does the discipline come from? How have you cultivated discipline in your life?
I would say, like you said, it starts with the little things. Whatever that challenge is, and it's super cliche to say it, but I mean, I genuinely believe it. Whatever the challenge is, whether it's starting a business, whether it's doing 200 miles, 100 miles, a marathon, who knows what, you have to have some why. And it doesn't have to be for the hostages, right? For that, it's nothing, whatever my next event's going to be, probably not for the hostages. Previous ones weren't for the hostages. So it doesn't have to be anything like that. It could be you're a father and you want your kids to see what's possible. It could be anything like that. And that's the big one. And a lot of it is to prove to yourself that you're able to do it. Because there's a lot of self-doubt. We doubt ourselves and we doubt humans in general way more than the human body's capable. I mean, David Goggins is a great person who shows that. But I think the discipline comes from the repetition, believing that you want to do it, signing up for whatever it is, social pressure I put on myself, that I'm going to blast it everywhere. And it's a weapon I use against myself on purpose. If I have that race 6 months, a year from now, I know the plan that I have to do, whether you've hired a coach, whether you built the plan yourself, whatever it is, you know the plan you have to do. And it's a bunch of little things. So even running the 250-mile race, to finish it, if I start at the start line or I was at the 50-mile mark where you're still tired, and you're like, wait, I have 200 more miles to go? Like that breaks you.
Yeah. I can imagine it.
But if you're like, I have 12 miles till the next aid station, and then we'll just reassess, I'll rest, I do whatever, and then another 12 miles, it's easy. Same with the training aspect of it. If you're like, I have this crazy training block to then run this insane feat, it's overwhelming. But if you're like, I have a 5-mile run today, and this is what my day looks like, and I'm going to prioritize that, and I'm not going to allow any excuses. Because if I do allow excuses, what does that say about me as a person? What will other people think about that? But not other people like general, like what will the people that matter to you kind of think? Like what would your kids think, right? If you're like right now, all the waking up at 4:30, all the training, doing the podcast, 100-something episodes, all that, like your kids see that and they're going to keep seeing it as you keep doing that. And they're going to learn from that and they look up to that and they're going to be like, that's my daddy. Same concept. So for any dads out there, do it for your kids, do it for yourself, whether you were bullied when you were a kid, whether, your wife is looking at you differently and you want to be the man that she first fell in love with.
100%.
Whether, there's 1.5 million reasons. I don't have to list them, but that's the core. That's the one that like can be that jab if someone were to say, have that in mind. Like prove it, like be that epic human being. And that means something else for everyone. And the discipline comes into, how do you look at yourself? What's your self-worth? Are you going to allow yourself to be the person that's constantly making excuses? Let's see where that takes you. A year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Let's see where that takes you. You're not going to like it and you're going to eventually change. How long does it take to change? That's up to you. But eventually to be in the top 1% of anything, whether it's wealth or business, or wealth or fitness or whatever, you need to be disciplined. You need to be doing what no one else does. Everyone's going to the bar and staying out till midnight, and then they're going to sleep in and be hungover all day the next day. That's what everyone's doing. You're not doing it if you want to be different. If you want to be regular, be regular. I don't care. It's not me. It's not my life, but that's not what I want for myself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people, and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I'm reading John D. Rockefeller's letters to his son.
Ooh, wow, I want to read that. That's cool.
It's definitely like one of those things, where you see how these guys were thinking back then.
That's a cool one. I didn't know that existed. That's sick. Okay, I need to read that.
So in reading John D. Rockefeller's letters to his son, he talks about the ancient wisdom, or I shouldn't even say ancient wisdom, similar philosophy to Jocko Willink, that excuses are lies. So he's sharing this even back in the 1800s. And I think that the reason this stuff resonates so deeply with people is because it's proven. And when we have that sensibility, when we have the ability to look at these situations from a place of rationalization. I interviewed Stephen Pressfield. He wrote a book called The War of Art, sold millions of copies. And
what's it called?
The War of Art. It's just the role of resistance that it plays in our life and all the different ways that it percolates. Right? Like cozy under the covers, or like procrastination, self-sabotage. And so he names rationalization as one of those gremlins. And it always stayed with me. And I'll just give you a quick one. He says rationalization is better than sex. Right? It comes from like from a scene, I think 30 Rock or whatever the show is. And one character says to the other, rationalization is better than sex. The other one goes, no, it's not. He's like, are you sure? You ever go a week without sex? The other one goes, you ever gone a week without rationalization? And so that really put it in perspective for me, where it's like, wow, justifying a lot of my existence, a lot of unnecessary telling myself the wrong story. And so when you put into perspective what it takes to cultivate discipline, and like you could have all the reasons in the world and you'll only find one not to do the thing, right? Where does that intrinsic motivation, right? Like we're talking about why and purpose and discipline, but like I found that even if I have a big enough reason, like I want my kids to look at me a certain way, sure, I think that character, that element, it definitely gets me pretty far. And I'm very proud of myself when my daughter sees me doing these things, even though she doesn't even know what's doing. She just thinks it's totally normal, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that's baseline for her.
Exactly. And same thing with my wife. I know that she's proud of me, but she loved me just as much the same, even if I never did these things, right? Probably. And just kidding, I love you. It's one of those things where where does that 7-layer deep analysis take you for your intrinsic motivation?
Everyone, a lot of what we do will link back to childhood to some reason, way, whatever it is. And then I think like probably 9th through 11th grade, not even 11th, 10th grade, 9th and 10th grade, even 8th, 9th, 10th grade, I was just like the weird kid. Bullied a little bit, but not more like psychologically, but not like it was like soft bullying, but it was enough where like you didn't really feel like you had friends. You kind of felt like an outsider all the time. You tried to go hang out with them, they'd kind of make fun of you and you go, or like you're kind of with them, but you're kind of the brunt of all jokes. And then you're doubting yourself. I was in a super competitive middle school / high school, where before that I was the big fish in a small pond, and now I'm the small fish in a big pond. And I think that was tough to like anything you do, there's someone better than you. And seeing that was really tough at one point. Now you have to get used to it and realize there's always gonna be someone better than you, but that's a good thing to keep striving for. But I think that was tough, and having people doubt me, being made fun of, kind of like how you were saying, being made fun of, having people doubt me, being nerdier, not being able to get girls, the beginning that became it. And, you wanted to like look good and be jacked and get in shape and all that. Then it just becomes anyone that's going to tell me I can't do something brings you back to something like that, where you're just I can do it. Like, what do you mean you're telling me I can't do this? Also, it's being that big fish, because anyone can, doing these crazy, crazy things, people are going to look at and be like, holy shit. And then they talk about you and they're impressed by you. And there is that aspect where you're like, yeah, you want it. Like, to say that social validation and that gratification
Sure.
doesn't exist would be lying. You don't only do it for that, but sometimes if I get up and I'm putting all this social pressure, I'm putting all this stuff, and I don't do it, I'll judge myself. But eventually, I won't be able to be living up to this person that I say I am, that I want to be also. So that's why I love like using peer pressure as a weapon against yourself for good, where you can use it as like, do I go to the bar or not? But you can also have these crazy expectations of yourself that people now expect. Like, I finished 250 and people's question is like, so what are you doing next?
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, is that done? Which a lot of people are saying, but they're like, no, you're probably doing something crazy after that. That's something that took years and years and years to build. So for me, I think it's like, you'll have the little ones for 250. It was the hostages, saw that, but it's really, who is Eli? What's going to stop Eli? Like, can I become this person that I don't even know if exists and believe? Like, I think there's a little bit of that.
I think it's one of those things that it's okay not to know. When I deliver seminars about resilience and cultivating a growth mindset, cultivating mental toughness, the art of overcoming setbacks,
Totally.
a big part of it is about purpose. And I think an underrated element, and Angela Duckworth in her book Grit talks about this, Carol Dweck talks about this in her book Mindset. They talk about discovery as a deliberate practice where it's important for you to go out, like, it's okay not to know, but like you have to go out and figure that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And something that you and I share, purpose through service. Like, when you don't know what to do, go give with your time, go give with your money, give with your energy, give with your blood, sweat, tears. Like, you find purpose in doing those things. I don't know about for you, but like for me, I imagine there wasn't an anticlimactic moment when you finished any of your ultras. I'm sure they were all like, sky high, and that was incredible.
Yeah.
But then I'm sure there's like a cascading effect after where,
for sure.
I mean, for me, after I finished my JD MBA, it was a goal that I had in mind for like 8 years, and I got a job at the DA, and I was like, oh my God, like I've got everything that I want. I'd never felt more lost. I'd never felt more like, who am I? What am I doing? Why did I do this? What did I need this for? Like, I got here, and now what? And it was just the beginning. And I changed my body. And then it was like, now what? And then, I changed my mindset. And then there's still like, okay, I got to be more present, So I learned these things along the way.
Totally.
And I think part of it is about the actual physical maturation of the brain, like that. Until 25, like it's just continually growing and changing. And then eventually, like, it reaches its pinnacle of like physical development. Not that you ever stop learning. You can always develop, neuroplasticity. You can always develop new neural connections. But it's one of those things that you're not as malleable and as impressionable to other people's opinions. You can start to think for yourself a bit. And so I really got lost in all of the opinions of other people, and I needed to get introspective. And a big change for me was like physically changing. That was a massive catalyst for growth. What do you think it was for you?
So I think for me, there were a few catalysts, not just one. I'd like to say there was this one aha, and then everything changed. But I think it's a cookie jar effect. And I also think, it's good that there wasn't one catalyst, because then people listening may be like, I didn't have that catalyst, so I'm just waiting for my catalyst. And it's like, no, like, think of something, doesn't matter how big it is, that's going to be hard for you and scares you a little bit. And if it scares you a little bit, that means you're doubting yourself. If you're doubting yourself, are you going to accept to be that person that doubts yourself?
I love it.
Or are you going to work to overcome that? And that might be a 10K for you. You might be on the couch being like, 10K is insane. Why are these people talking about 250 miles? Like, that's another level. That might be a 10K for you. Do the 10K. Do another one. Once you do the 10K, sign up for a half marathon or a marathon. and it'll over time get there. So for me, I was doing tons of soccer training, and we were number one team in the country, and I was busting my ass for it. And I had a coach that just drilled it down, and we had a very competitive team. Everyone set a really high bar and expectation. And then college came, and I just became the frat star and all that. But then I started training, and I was like, you know what? I want to do an Ironman. And there's a whole longer story to that, but we'll skip it. Well, I can get into it quickly. Basically, my dad signed up for a normal triathlon, like an Olympic, and he was overweight, and something I always wanted him was to get in better shape. So I started training with him in the mornings, open water swim. We had a little crew that we would swim with. And then time of his race, and I got there at 4 a.m. with him. Told him, if you go do a triathlon, I'll be there. I don't care what time. I'll be there for you. I'll support you. So I got there, loved the community. First time I really saw, I was like, wow, these people are so happy. They're all health oriented. They're in great shape. They're all smiling, and it's like 4 or 5 in the morning, and there's hundreds, thousands of these people. Like, what? Where was this world? Like, this exists? So I was like, all right, I'm going to sign up for one. Signed up for one a few weeks later. It was a sprint, did it, loved it. And I was like, I'm doing an Ironman in a year. And I was like, that crazy. I've always wanted to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to do it because I had no basis of training, but I just started doing it. Signed up for the triathlon team at USC, where it's just a club team. Slowly chipped away at the goal and the training and the discipline and all that. And I was like drinking, and I didn't have terrible training block, but I struggled and finished it. But that was a cookie in my cookie jar. Then I joined the military. And even doing that, I was like, I remember biking, and it was the coldest I've ever been. It was one of the worst triathlons. It was one of the worst years for the Arizona Ironman. And people talk about it to this day, but it was like freezing, hail, wind. No one expected the temperature to be like that even the day before. I remember being there biking and being like, it's going to be harder. I was saying Shayatit Matkat, which are the 2 units in the army that I wanted to be in. And I was just telling myself, it's going to be harder there. So like, if you can't do this, you're not going to be able to do that. So I was like, boom, I'm going to do that. So I got through, and then I was in the military, and I was training. But I knew everyone was like, whoa, he did an Ironman. So now everyone's looking at me like, he's the Ironman guy. He's strong. He's built. Like, I have an expectation to hold. But at the same time, I did do an Ironman. And this isn't as hard as what was there. I thought it was going to be harder, but like, this isn't as hard as what was there. So boom, finished military training. Another cookie in the cookie jar. And you keep adding those, whether it's a 50 mile or a 100 mile or whatever it is, and that adds. So I think like Ironman was a big one for me in terms of catalysts. Military was a huge one for me in terms of catalysts. The 50 and 100 milers were big. And now most recently, this is just fitness wise, and now most recently the 250 miler. It's a big one for me for a catalyst. You know, now I don't want to keep going in the running world. Maybe I do at some point, that, but like, what are other cool things? And I love what Nick Bear says, where he's like, he loves being a new student. And he did a 100 miler, but then he switched, and he's doing high rocks, and he's doing this, and he's always changing it. He's like, I love being a student. And that hit a chord in me when I heard him say that, because I had gotten so deep in the running world. I was like, wait a minute. I'm going to go swim now. I'm going to go lift again. Like, I'm good with the running for now. Let me find a new thing that I'm a novice at and start getting cookies from there. So I think it's, to go back to the question, there was no one catalyst. It was many that form who you are, and you build on that.
It's awesome that you have these inputs that inspire you and challenge you. And we were talking earlier about this, where you see all these people that are accomplishing these different feats. And most people get intimidated, but people like you and I get inspired.
Totally.
And it's a very important perspective to have, because I see people doing sub 3 hour marathons. I see people doing 100 to 250, 400 mile races in the Arctic Circle. Like, there's so many different levels to this stuff that you have to put into perspective. Like, oh, well, I have rationalization, right? I have all these other things going on, so therefore it's okay if I don't. But that's not really the game that I want to play. I want to be inspired and learn from these people that do these things. I want to understand what is it that drives someone to run 250 plus miles for a cause. I want to understand what makes someone want to go to the Arctic Circle to do a week's worth of miles, 400 plus miles, and freeze their ass off and put themselves through that hardship and understand what's the draw. And I felt that with the 50. Like 58, I was like, I want to taste the air up there over 50, but like, I'll be good after that. And now you know, I'm running as much, if not more, than I was when I was training for the 58.
Yeah.
Like a 50-mile week was a big week. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I haven't taken a day
Yeah.
off in
You're
like
doing
30,
50-mile
40
weeks
days.
every week now.
Yeah. And it's like, what am I doing this
Yeah.
for? And the other thing is like, we get lost in the purpose, like
Totally.
we were talking about it before. Like I literally am like, what is the purpose of all of this?
Yeah.
But I feel the purpose and I feel the parallels when I'm at the office and I'm with my team and they're looking at me for guidance and I have to be able to answer and I want to be able to be confident and I want to put myself in a position to know if I just do something super difficult that I know other people aren't willing to do,
100%.
that already puts me in a different space.
100%.
And then from there, I can go and add value.
100%.
It's not going to solve all your problems, but it reminds you that you can solve hard problems. And that's
So
a
spot
big
on.
part of why, even when I lose sight of the why or the reason or my vision or whatever it is, I have clarity on the reality that if I keep going and doing the thing, especially when I can't see the finish line, that something good is happening and I just have to trust that. And I remember when I did like my first challenge to my last challenge, I was like, oh, I found the answer for myself. I just have to keep doing different challenges and I'll learn something and
Yeah.
I'll get better. And to a degree, I think that's true, but I also think it can't be all you're about.
100%.
And right now, I don't really have any meaningful challenge. There's a 100-miler in the back of my mind. There's a sub 3 in the back of my mind. Like it is, right? Because like you want to know what that feeling is.
100%.
Like, and to your point, you're like, you pretty much conquered the running world in a lot of ways, right?
There's
Especially
so
ultra
much more,
endurance.
but like then you're in the top percentiles.
But it becomes unreasonable to the point where, like, again, why am I doing this?
It also, I think it just goes into, do you want, like you have to take a step back, and that's what it required me at that point. Do I want to explore the entire crazy new stratosphere of like the ultra running world and just start getting deeper into that and maybe getting crazy times for the hundreds? Or going back to what Nick Bear said, do I want to take a step back? Because am I trying to be a pro and be the best ultramarathon runner? No. So what am I doing this for? I'm doing this to constantly learn. I'm doing this for the journey. I'm doing this to learn along the way and become a better person. I'm not doing it just for the destination. You can have a new destination, but you can also, it's your life, you can always pivot it. So like take a big step back. Why am I doing this? Okay, I want to be a better person. I want to challenge myself. I want to do these cool, crazy accomplishments. I want to become the best person I can possibly be in the journey along the way. Let's learn again. Let's pivot, let's find a new thing, and let's learn again and start from zero, because that's where you're getting a whole new 80%. Like I'm at that, you become, you can do 80% of the work with 20%, you're there. But now I'm at this, like, we're running at this crazy amount where it's going to take so much time to improve a 1%, and I'll learn a ton more along the journey. But I was also losing the love of it a little bit. I was getting a little burnt out. So I was like, wait, it doesn't matter. Let me find a new thing that I love that becomes fun and do that. And you just change the story, you change the script, but you fall in love with a new journey. And I'm loving the stuff that I'm doing now. And that's fun. And that's fun for me. And I'm going to become a better person. And the new destination is also sick. Because I would be lying if I said part of reason why I do it is like we had talked about a little bit, and it goes into like the childhood trauma of bullying and all that. But to be like, yeah, I did a 250-mile race. That's fucking cool. Like, yeah, that's sick. Look at me like that. Like, I'd be lying if there isn't that social bragging, whatever aspect that makes me feel good and boosts my ego and all that. I'd be lying if there wasn't an element of that. Because it is cool. Like, I don't care. I think it's cool. Some people think it's crazy, but I think it's cool.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think, like, to go back to, some people are intimidated by these crazy feats, and people like you and I are inspired by it. And like, what can we do? I think about that all the time because people ask me that question a lot, just friends, this, that. They're like, but I can't do it. And I'm like, you can. You just have to get in that headspace. You have to be inspired by it. You have to find the why. I go back and forth because I'm like, is it a certain type of person that is inspired and isn't scared by it? Do you know what I mean? Is that the thing? And you just have to be the person that is inspired. But I think people like us, and I think other people slowly learn, and I'm not trying to put us on a pedestal. I'm just like, but other people will slowly learn it with their own little cookies in the cookie jar. But I'm so inspired, and it sounds cheesy, but so inspired by the potential of myself and of humans in general and the
Same.
human spirit.
Same.
So when I see someone who ran across the country, or fucking the guy who, I'm blanking on his name, the guy who ran across the length of Africa, or, you know, running across the Arctic, whatever, when I see that and I know the things that they had to go through and that's possible, that is amazing. Like, that is so freaking cool. And they're doing that for me. If I can do something and make someone else think that way, that's epic. Like, that's epic. And I'm making a change in some way, and I want to keep doing that.
1000%. There's a great sentiment. They may not remember my name, but they may feel my impact. And to your
I
point,
like that.
it's David Geffen. He was a music agent. I believe he's still alive.
Yeah.
That prime example you just talked about. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who ran across Africa. That's a prime example of that. You feel the impact, right? You have that perspective of, well,
The hardest geezer.
well, I don't know.
That guy who ran across Africa.
Oh, okay, that's
the
his
hardest
name.
geezer.
I was
That's his
like, I don't know
Instagram
who that
handle.
is.
Yeah.
That kind of perspective always keeps me humble, because there's a lot of like pessimistic, views around, we're all going to die anyway. But I don't see it that way. I see it as they may feel the impact. Like, the world will know that I was here. And that, for me, isn't about legacy. It's about impact. And I think there's a difference between the two, because the impact perspective helps me process my purpose, my daily actions just differently, because I don't spend time in this, fatalistic, like, oh, none of this matters anyway. It all matters.
Totally.
It all matters. And to pretend it doesn't, in my opinion, is a cop-out.
Totally.
It's an unwillingness to have that impact. And maybe that impact is different for you than it is for me, and that's fine. I think the whole point is find what it is for you to make the most of it, because I spent so much of my life not clear on the impact that I wanted to make, not sure about what I was doing here, even with military experience and like all these different certifications, from like scuba diving to flying planes. Like, yeah, awesome. But like,
you're a pilot?
Yeah. So
That's
like,
sick.
what? Thanks. So like, what is it about? But it's been a long time since I've flown.
Yeah. Basically, you're telling me don't get on a plane.
Yeah, don't. But I picked up running instead. But the point being, like, all of these different things, like the degrees, the certifications, the accolades, the achievements, it's extrinsic.
Yeah.
It's something that is beautiful, right? Whether it's the medals on the wall or the awards in the trophy case or the recognition from social media, that stuff, I mean, there was a couple months I took off after the 58 miler and I was still running and training super hard, and like, I didn't post about any of it, and I was still doing it every single day. Like, it's something that's in me, whether everyone knows or no one knows. And that was an insecurity for a bit, where it's like, well, why am I doing this? I had to step away for a minute to remind myself, like, you operate regardless of how you feel. You do these things because they matter and mean something, As we round this thing out, I wanna talk a bit about, your coaching style and how you've impacted the 58 mile ultra marathon's a testament to the kind of sincerity and adaptability in your style that I've experienced. But how would you describe it, and what is it that you hope to achieve when you work with people?
There's two types of coaching and ways and different things that people need and want when they come. I do a lot of data analysis. We get into blood work, gut analysis, DEXA scans. We get into all that. And I love, that's like the nerd in me that loves breaking into it and seeing how you can optimize your health. But that's like the fun part that everyone likes, and it it shows. But especially for the people that need a big change, it's all mindset. Like, a lot of the stuff I'm telling people, it's nothing super new. Like, if you're eating more salads than you are hamburgers, and if you're working out 3-4 times a week and getting your steps in, like, it's stuff they know, but they're not doing it. So it's a mindset. So one of the things I add is that accountability. It's the checking in on you a few times a week. It's the pushing you. It's when, like, I can feel that you're starting to doubt yourself or question it. You hop on the phone, you walk through it, you talk through it, you answer it. You just need that little nudge when they're starting to pause and question. And I think that's the biggest thing, is getting people to believe in themselves, and getting them on that momentum. Because people just need that push again. Maybe it's been months, years, whatever, and they've added 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, or they don't think they can do a marathon or an ultra marathon anymore because they just don't believe in themselves. I mean, I had one guy who was in the hospital. He was 250 pounds 8 months ago. He was fully hospitalized, and he started working with me, first with just a weight loss goal. And he lost in the last 8-9 months. I mean, he went full. He stopped drinking. He was super healthy. He's like been epic. He's lost like 80 pounds.
Wow.
He looks jacked, like looks better than I do. And he called me a couple months ago and he goes, dude, in June or July, what's June, is the 12-month anniversary of me being hospitalized. I want to run a marathon and have you at the finish line. Wow. Can you train me for a marathon? I was like, 100%.
I might be able to do that.
Like 100% we can do that. And that's like to show it's the little things. And as you start building that person's momentum and you check in and you create a plan, because a lot of it is just having that program and plan and then checking in and giving the accountability and changing their mindset. Forward momentum is amazing. It's like Newton's law, you know, an object in motion will stay in motion, an object at rest will stay at rest. So objects at rest, people who are lazy, people who don't have that going for them, they just need that push, unless pushed by, unless met by an outside force. Okay. I want to be that outside force that pushes people and gives them that momentum again and gets them to believe in themselves, gets them those habits back to completely change their life.
Well, I've experienced it firsthand, and I appreciate it. And I accomplished my goal, which we were talking about before. I probably would have anyway, but to be and work with someone that I could trust, that listened, that understood, that worked with my schedule and helped me process how to attack this thing in a way that would leave me in a great position, which I was able to train the next day. And I say that humbly as an athlete. And I was running like 5 days after the 58 miler. It was really like an awesome transformation. And I'm grateful for the coaching. I'm grateful for the wisdom, experience, and insight. Of
course, brother.
There's a question that I pose to all my guests that I'm not going to pose to you.
Do it.
If the future version of yourself from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
Do everything, and I heard this recently, but do everything with integrity. That comes in the small things, generally not the big things, comes in the small things. And that over time is going to mold you into the person you want to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eli Wininger, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people keep up with your journey?
You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok now, I guess. Eli Wining, so at Eli Wining, ELIWINNING, winning like you're winning a race.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Inside the Inspired. If you want to keep up with Eli's journey, you can follow him on socials. If you got any value out of this episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Once again, my name is Jonathan Cohen, and this is Inside the Inspired.